After nearly 3 decades together, and surviving one of Hollywood's biggest scandals, Lori Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli are officially calling it quits. But insiders say, this split didn't happen overnight. To the outside world, they were the picture of success. The actress who brought warmth and charm to Full House and the designer who turned streetwear into a luxury empire. Together, they built an image of glamour, family, and quiet strength. But behind the scenes, that picture-perfect marriage had been slowly unraveling. People close to the couple say the pressure began years ago, long before headlines would change everything. They faced whispers, judgment, and the kind of public scrutiny few marriages could ever survive. Still, they stood side by side. Until recently. Now, nearly 28 years later, sources confirm Lori and Mossimo are living apart, taking a break, with no legal filings yet. It sounds calm, even gentle. But Hollywood insiders hint there's more beneath the surface. This wasn't a sudden decision. It was the final chapter of a story that had been quietly writing itself for years. And what led to that moment, when loyalty, fame, and forgiveness could no longer hold them together, might be even more complicated than anyone realized. Back in 1997, Lori Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli's love story felt like something straight out of a Hollywood rom-com. A rising actress and a self-made fashion designer finding each other at the height of their success. She was America's sweetheart from Full House, the woman every family trusted on their TV screens. He was the sharp, creative mind behind the billion-dollar Mossimo clothing brand that had taken over department stores and college campuses alike. Their worlds couldn't have been more different. Hollywood lights versus fashion runways. Yet together, they built a home that seemed untouchable. Friends called them a perfect match. Both ambitious, both protective of their privacy, and both fiercely devoted to their daughters, Olivia Jade and Isabella Rose. 4 years, they played the part flawlessly, smiling red carpet appearances, quiet family getaways, and the kind of luxury lifestyle that spoke for itself. They weren't loud, they weren't flashy, just steady, successful, and enviably in love. But as the cameras captured their best moments, there were things they didn't show. The long separations, the silent disagreements, and the pressure of fame and expectations. It's easy to look perfect in family portraits, but behind those glossy photos, small cracks had started to show, long before anyone noticed. In 2019, everything changed. What began as whispers soon exploded into one of the biggest scandals Hollywood had ever seen. The college admissions scheme that would drag Lori Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli's names through every headline in America. The story was shocking. Prosecutors accused the couple of paying $500,000 to get their daughters, Olivia Jade and Isabella Rose, into the University of Southern California. The girls were falsely presented as rowing recruits, despite never having touched an oar. When the news broke, it wasn't just a legal case. It was a full-blown media storm. Lori, once the wholesome face of Full House, became the unexpected symbol of privilege and corruption in elite education. Mossimo, the businessman with a once flawless reputation, found himself standing beside her as the world judged every move they made. Their daughters, both rising social media stars, faced their own wave of backlash, losing brand deals and being relentlessly criticized online. By August 2020, the couple had pleaded guilty to wire and mail fraud. Lori received a 2-month prison sentence, Mossimo 5. For a family that had lived in luxury and comfort, this was a fall no one saw coming. But the scandal didn't just strip away their freedom, it tested their marriage like never before. Those months apart, the humiliation, the headlines. It left scars that no amount of forgiveness could easily heal. When Lori and Mossimo walked out of prison in 2020, they didn't return to the glamorous world they once knew. The red carpets were gone, the invitations had stopped, and the Hollywood doors that had always been open were suddenly closed. So, they did what many thought impossible. They started over quietly. They sold their grand Bel Air mansion, distancing themselves from the spotlight that had once celebrated them and then turned cruelly against them. Their next move was symbolic, a $9.5 million home in Hidden Hills, private, gated, and far from the noise of public judgment. For a while, it seemed like they were rebuilding not just their lives but also their peace. Lori kept her head down, focusing on redemption. Slowly, carefully, she returned to television. Her comeback began with When Hope Calls, followed by heartfelt roles in Fall into Winter and Blue Bloods. Each performance seemed to mirror her real life, a woman trying to move past her mistakes, one step at a time. Meanwhile, Mossimo chose silence. No interviews, no projects, no spotlight. Reports claimed he focused on family and personal reflection, while others whispered that he struggled to find his footing after the scandal. The couple who had once been inseparable now seemed to be walking separate emotional paths, one returning to the light, the other fading into the background. Because as Lori worked to rebuild her image, Mossimo quietly began to disappear from hers. By 2022, the cracks that had once been hidden beneath polite smiles and family photos began to show. Friends close to Lori and Mossimo quietly admitted that something had changed. The couple who once did everything together were now living parallel lives, polite, peaceful, but emotionally distant. Public appearances grew rare. When Lori attended charity events or interviews, Mossimo was nowhere to be seen. When paparazzi caught glimpses of him in Los Angeles, she was working on set miles away. There were no public arguments, no scandals this time, just silence. And sometimes, silence says more than words ever could. Rumors started swirling online. Some claimed the two had different priorities, that Lori was focused on rebuilding her career and reputation, while Mossimo wanted a quieter life away from the cameras. Others whispered about trust, suggesting that what the world saw as forgiveness might have never fully healed beneath the surface. By early 2024, when their sprawling Hidden Hills mansion quietly appeared on the market for $16.5 million, fans began connecting the dots. Selling that house, the very one that symbolized their fresh start, felt like the final signal. Something was shifting. And deep down, people suspected it wasn't just the real estate that was up for sale. It was the end of an era. Because when a couple gives up the home they built their second chance in, it often means they've already given up on something much bigger. And then came the confirmation. Quiet, measured, but powerful enough to shake Hollywood. In an exclusive statement to People, Lori Loughlin's representative finally broke the silence. They are living apart and taking a break from their marriage. There are no legal proceedings at this time. After nearly 28 years together, the news hit differently. This wasn't a tabloid rumor or an anonymous leak. It came straight from Lori's own camp, calm, factual, and yet deeply emotional in what it didn't say. No drama. No blame. Just two people stepping away from something that once seemed unbreakable. Insiders described it as a pause, not a divorce, a time to reflect and figure things out. Those words left fans hopeful, imagining a quiet reconciliation behind closed doors. But others close to the couple hinted that this break might not be as temporary as it sounds. They'd weathered scandal, prison, and public humiliation, but sometimes it's the quiet aftermath that finally pulls two people apart. There were no bitter statements or legal filings, just distance, the kind that grows slowly, invisibly, until one day, you realize it's permanent. And as sources whispered that Lori has been focusing on peace, forgiveness, and moving forward, some began to wonder if that new chapter no longer included Mossimo at all. Because while the world sees a break, those closest to them say this might be the ending neither of them ever wanted to admit. In April 2024, Lori Loughlin gave her first major interview since the scandal. And this time, there were no rehearsed apologies or legal statements. Just reflection. Speaking with First for Women magazine, she opened up about forgiveness, growth, and the importance of letting go of negativity. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't what she said. It was what she didn't. She never mentioned Mossimo by name. Not once. Instead, she talked about learning to forgive, about how life's too short to hold on to grudges, and about how everyone makes mistakes. Her tone was calm and measured, the kind of peace that doesn't come from pretending everything's fine but from finally accepting that it isn't. It felt like a woman quietly reclaiming control of her life. Someone who had spent years defined by a scandal, and a marriage that carried the weight of it, now choosing to define herself. Then came her appearance on Curb Your Enthusiasm, playing a heightened version of herself. Fans called it brilliant. She poked fun at her own controversy, showing the world she could laugh, heal, and move forward. It wasn't just acting. It was closure. For many, that cameo was a turning point. The moment Lori stopped being a headline and became a person again. It was symbolic, even powerful, because the woman who once hid from public judgment was now standing in front of it, unafraid. Fans saw it as Lori reclaiming her story, even if it meant rewriting the ending. So what comes next for Lori Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli? According to sources close to the couple, Lori is pouring her energy into work, family, and quiet stability. Her focus seems crystal clear: to keep moving forward, one project at a time. She's slowly rebuilding trust with Hollywood, reconnecting with her audience, and surrounding herself with the people who truly stood by her. Those who've seen her recently describe her as calmer, lighter, like someone finally breathing again after years of holding her breath. Mossimo, meanwhile, has stayed almost entirely out of the public eye. No interviews, no statements, no appearances. Friends say he's keeping his circle small, focusing on business ventures and personal reflection. Their daughters, Olivia Jade and Isabella Rose, remain close to both parents and are said to be offering support as their family navigates this quiet separation. Still, the question everyone keeps asking is the one no one can answer. Is this really just a break, or is it goodbye? Rumors hint that reconciliation isn't completely off the table, but others say the emotional distance might be too deep to cross. After everything they've survived, the scandal, the public humiliation, the long road back to normalcy, some wonder if forgiveness has finally met its limits. Because sometimes, even when love endures the storm, it can't survive the calm that follows. They survived the headlines, the handcuffs, and the humiliation. They faced the kind of public shame that would have broken most couples, and for a while, it seemed like nothing could tear them apart. But in the end, it wasn't the scandal that ended Lori Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli's marriage. It was the quiet distance that came after. There were no explosive fights or tabloid betrayals this time, just years of trying to rebuild while slowly drifting further apart. They endured everything the world threw at them, yet couldn't escape the silence that grew between them. Sometimes, love doesn't end in anger. It just fades in silence. And now, nearly 3 decades after their fairy tale began, Lori and Mossimo stand at a crossroads. Two people forever tied by history, family, and forgiveness, but possibly walking in different directions for good. Do you think Lori and Mossimo will find their way back, or has Hollywood witnessed the end of one of its most tested marriages?